Well, guess who is launching a bid to host the 2028 and/or 2032 UEFA Soccer World Championships? The hint before the break was that country is also banned from all international soccer play. Currently, that, of course, is Russia. They were banned after the invasion of Ukraine, but announcing a formal bid for either of those tournaments through UEFA. Their statement saying, "We are sending the declaration today. We assume that Russia is already prepared to host large-scale competitions. We have the experience." Now, they did host the 2014 Winter Games and the 2018 World Cup. The very stadium where the World Cup final was recently used to host a rally to support Vladimir Putin. Now, needless to say, UEFA will accept the bid, but it would immediately meet condemnation from every nation involved in the World Cup. Most recently, those countries in their group, Poland, the Czech Republic, and Sweden, all refused to play them. Should they have been allowed, the US, Canada, and the UK also agreed with that. Rochelle, your thoughts?
So it's interesting. Obviously, UEFA sort of caught on the back foot with this. They were expecting this to sort of be a done deal before this sudden declaration. And UEFA actually released a statement saying that even though they did decide on the 28th of February to suspend all Russian teams, whether national representative teams or club teams, from FIFA and UEFA competitions, they didn't suspend the Russian Football Union at that time. So there is still like a sliver of gray area, but you figure against the backdrop of geopolitical tensions and the fact that they're saying that more sanctions, more sporting sanctions could follow. It's interesting to try and figure out what Russia's motivation is in doing this in the middle of an ongoing conflict.
Right, Rochelle. And I think it is difficult, I think, for us to, again, wrap our heads around why Russia would be doing this, given the optics that UEFA is now faced with even having to consider this bid. Now, of course, really the front runner here, I believe, is really that joint UK-Ireland entry, plus Turkey's entry that was made more recently for hosting this 2028 European Championship. So I think it is going to be interesting to see what rhetoric and what comments ultimately come out from UEFA as they consider where this is ultimately going to be hosted. But you do have to imagine that this is just both bad optics, and it would run contrary to the sanctions and the isolation that virtually all Western countries have now tried to impose on Russia in the near term here, given the ongoing war and invasion.
Let's just be clear. There is zero chance they will be awarded either of those tournaments. Absolutely zero. I think the question is long term, if Russia continues this invasion, if they do take Ukraine at some point, will Russia ever be allowed back into the international community? That's just not sports, but business as well. Will FIFA, will UEFA, 2, 3, 4 years down the line, will the Olympic Committee just look the other way and accept Russia having taken Ukraine, or will they be disallowed from international sporting events for the foreseeable future? Will U.S. businesses stay out of Russia down the road? So many questions and really no answers at this point, other than the fact that they will not get the World Championship.
I mean, you consider the amount of advertising in advance, the amount of that brands have to pay to advertise for this. If you've pulled out of Russia and your brand is now attached to this, is this something that you're going to want? It's a lot of gray area here. As you mentioned, highly unlikely that the games will go forward. But as you mentioned, as Emily mentioned, a tough position to be put in.